Hello and welcome back to class. Today we are basically going to talk about aggregation in SQL. Remember when we talked about Excel, you remember that we used functions like the count function, the sum function, the average function. We want to see how we can use some of these functions in SQL. And we are talking about some major functions in SQL today like count, sum, average, mean, max, and distinct. Okay. Today we'll be working on healthcare data sets because I'm trying for us to work with different kinds of data. We've worked with superstore data when we're using Excel. We've worked with supply chain optimization data as well. So I want us to go to another sector, which is healthcare. So everything we are doing in SQL basically will be based on healthcare data sets. So here on Cargo, there's a data set, okay, that is on healthcare, and you can read it. It's a synthetic data. That means it doesn't contain real data, okay? It's just like extracted. It is designed to mimic real world healthcare data, blah, blah, blah. The inspiration. Then this is the data set information. We have the name, age, gender. But I have replaced the name with ID so that YouTube will not flag the video and I'll be able to upload it. So we have different columns in this table. And then you can read through all of these. Okay, it can be utilized for a wide range of purpose, developing, practicing data cleaning, creating data visualization, and on like that. I hope I remember to tell you that in SQL you cannot build dashboard, you cannot create data visualization in SQL. Okay, I think I forgot to mention that during the introductory class. So all you do is just query the database, analyze data, try to answer business question. But if you want to do the visualization, you have to take it like Tableau or Power BI for visualization. And this is what the sample data set looks like. I'm going to add this link to the description so you can download the data and follow along this project. So let's start by importing the data into SQL. Okay, so let's just put it in this database, my first DB. We say we'll right click on it, come to task, and then we'll import flat file for a CSV file. So I'll click next, and then I'm going to pick the location where my data set is in. It's right there. I want to open it and click next. And this is a preview of what the data set looks like. As I said earlier, I replaced the name with ID, and then we have different columns in this data set like the age, gender, blood type, blah, blah, blah. And then I can click next, okay? So you can see that the ID is taking integer, age is integer, gender is n varchar. Let's see. Gender is supposed to be just varchar. I mean, like we don't have numbers, so we can just change it. So you can leave it, it's still gonna work, but let me change it, okay? Voucher 50. Okay, the blood type, medical condition, date of admission is taking this data type, and on like that. Okay, so let me allow notes in case I want to teach you how to do data cleaning so we can see how it works. Okay, and then we can make the ID the primary key. So since I've explained primary key from the last class, you now know that the ID will uniquely identify each patient's record for this data set. So I can just pick only the ID. And you also remember that you can only have one primary key in one table. So the ID will be our primary key for this particular table. And then you can click next and then finish. Okay, so it looks like we got an error. Let's see what happened. So it looks like the error is saying that 32768 of type string from data source cannot be converted in the ID column. Okay. Fail to convert parameter value from a string. Value was either too large or too small for int16. Okay. So basically, let's go back to preview the data. Okay, so the problem is coming from this ID column, I guess. And it's just showing us the first 50 rows. So let's see the data type is assigned to the ID column. It is a small integer. So basically, the error is trying to tell us that we cannot assign small int to it because it contains large values. Okay, so let me pick normal int and see if that works for it. Okay, and now you can see that it has imported our data successfully. Let's check the warning. It said up to one cell of data may have been dropped during insert in the billing amount. So the reason why sometimes, because it is one cell, I don't have to worry too much. But the reason why it is dropped is if the column, let's say the billing amount column contains numeric data type, and there's one cell in that column that has string, it doesn't follow the data type that the large cells in the column entails, then it's just going to remove it. So that's what it's trying to tell us right here. So we don't have a problem since it's just one cell. I'll say okay and I'll close it. Okay, so now let's just refresh our database, refresh, and then we look for the data table that we just imported. Okay, so now we have our data table right here. So let me rename it to just healthcare. Okay, so first I want to change the database to my first DB because that's where I have my data set right here. And then I want to see what my data table looks like. So I'll select all from the name of the data table is healthcare. So I want to select all from healthcare. And then I'm going to run this. Okay, so now we have our data table imported in SQL, and now I can proceed with my explanation of aggregation in SQL. This is not a full project that we are doing yet. I'm still doing explanation for some terms that we have to understand in SQL. We are still going to move to the actual project, okay? So the actual project is where we go from ask to prepare to process to analyze. All right. Okay, so the first aggregation function we are going to talk about is the count function. Okay, so the count function basically just counts the number of records that we have. Okay, so let's say we want to know the total number of patients in this data set. We can just say select, all right. We want to know the total number of patients. That means we want to know how many patients we have in this data. So I'm going to select, instead of selecting whole, because I just want to know the total number of patients, I'll do select count, bracket ID. Okay, then I'll do from healthcare. All right, so let me explain what I just did. You know, if I say select all, it's going to show us the entire data column, right? But we are only working with the ID column in the question I said. We said we want to know the total number of patients. So ID will represent each unique patient, and if we count everything, we'll know how many patients we have, okay? Now, we want to count the number of patients. That's why we are using the count function. We want to count how many patients have ID in our hospital, basically. So I'm just going to run it. And now you can see that we have 55,500 patients in our hospital. You can also see that when it gave us our result, it's bringing no column name on at the top of it because we did aggregate function. Aggregate function is like you want to do another calculation that is not already in your data set. Okay, we can rename this column to total patients. We use the alias function to rename. The alias function is also represented as ask. Okay, it's called alias. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well, but this is what it is called, alias, right there. So we want to select count ID. We've gotten the results for that. And then we want to rename this column. So at the front of where we use the aggregate function, we can just say as, then I'll give it whatever name I want the column header to be, which is patients, total patients in this case. Okay, let's run it now. If I run this, can you see now that we no longer have no column name, we now have total patients. Okay, so that's just by the way on how to use the count function in SQL. Say we also want to know the total billing amount for this data set. We are doing the total. That means we are doing the sum of billing amounts, right? We can use the sum function to do that. And sum function is just used to get the total of values, okay? So we can do select in this case and then use the sum function. The same format that you did here is what you are doing for using aggregation in SQL. So we are summing the billing amount in this context. So in brackets will be the column you are summing, which is billing amount. Then we can close the bracket and specify from which table we are getting it from. So that will be from the healthcare table, okay? So now we can run it and then we are going to get the overall billing amount. So this is about 1,417,389,340. Okay, so we can name this header as well, this column header, and say as what are we going to call it? Total billing or total billing amount or total amount. Let's just do total amount. Okay, and if we run it now, we just gave it a column header. All right, so now I've showed you how to use the count function. I've also showed you how to use the sum function. So let's just say we want to get the average billing amount now. I'm just going to copy this, paste it here, and change the function to average. So I'm also going to change this to average amount. Okay, so let's run it. So now you can see the average is $25,539. Now let's look for the minimum billing amount and the maximum billing amount in this data set. Minimum billing amount Okay, and for that we can do select mean, and then we'll do billing amount. I don't want you to say, oh, this answer is just copying and pasting. That's why I'm typing it. Okay, so minimum billing amount as mean, mean bill. Let me just use that. Doesn't make sense that much. So yeah, from healthcare. Okay, so we want to get the minimum billing amount. We can see that the minimum billing amount, it is minus 2008. That is the minimum billing amount. So we can run it now. And then we can see this is the maximum 52,764. Is that minimum is for the smallest value, maximum is for like the largest value. Okay. So, and everything you select, as you can see, whenever you want to use aggregation, it will start with select, select, select. You can see everything that we did started with select. So now quickly let me explain what distinct function is. Okay, so distinct function is basically used to look for unique values in a particular column. So let's take this medical condition, for example. You can see we have cancer, obesity, diabetes, asthma, blah, blah, blah. We have different categories. So let's say we only want to see the unique categories and not the way it is repeated. So because looking at it like this, we can't really tell how many categories we have. And we want to be sure. Maybe they asked you in your company that, okay, please let's know the categories of medical condition that we have. Okay, all you have to do is that we always start our aggregation with select. So we are going to select and we use the distinct function that we use to get the unique values. And inside brackets, we are going to specify the column that we are applying the distinct function to. Okay, in this case, we have medical condition. Close the brackets, and then you can specify from what table is it going to get the column. So we are saying from the healthcare table. All right, so let's run this now. You can see now that we have just 6 medical conditions: diabetes, cancer, asthma, hypertension, obesity, and yeah, this is how we can get the unique categories. In Excel, if we wanted to do this, we would have used the filter, that drop down to inspect. But in SQL, you can easily just use these things to do that. And also, we can get the minimum, maximum at the same time. So because I'm writing it one separately, does not mean that that is how you keep writing it. So let me show you an example of how we can get minimum and maximum in just one query. Okay, so let me just do min slash max for remembrance. Okay, so let's say I want to get the minimum and also the maximum. I can select min. Okay, let's write the query in this style so it doesn't mix up. So we can select the minimum of billing amount. Oh, the minimum of billing amount, okay, as min underscore bill. I'll do a comma for continuation because I also still want to get the max as well. I want to get the max of the billing amount. Okay, and that will be as max underscore bill. Okay, so it's just 2 columns I want to get, the minimum and the maximum. If I wanted to get more, I can still keep adding comma and specifying it underneath. And the reason why I had tab here, because I don't want it to mix up. Imagine that I wrote it like this. You might be wondering, it might look confusing. So that is why I just kind of like separated it. So you know that I'm selecting first, and now I want to get the mean as this. I want to get the max as this. So now we can specify from where we are getting it from. So we are getting it from healthcare. And now we can run it. So you can see now that it returned 2 columns. It returned the minimum, it returned the maximum. So all of the function that we did earlier, you try to do that. Get the count, the sum, the average, the mean, the max in just one table like this. So it will be in different columns, just like this example that I did right here. So now let's try to do aggregation with the where clause. I explained where clause in our previous class, and I just want to show you how you can use this with the where clause. Okay. So now let's say we want to know the total number of female patients that we have in this hospital. As you can see from the gender column, we have male and we have female category. Okay. And now we want to know the total number of female patients. All you do is just select, and then we want to count because we want to know the total number of. So we are selecting count. So I'm going to count all. Remember, asterisk means all, right? So we want to select and count everything from the healthcare table. Okay. We are now going to specify our condition that where our gender, right, where our gender equals to in a single quote because female is a string data type, and then we have this. So we are saying that count everything, count the total number of patients from the healthcare data set, but filter it out, only show us the total number of female that we have in this data set. Okay, so now we can run it, and you can see that we have 27,726 female patients in this data set. Let's see the total number of patients we have. which is not female. You see that we have 55,000 altogether, both male and female, and female has just 27,000. So think of any question you can try to answer using this data set, using the aggregate function. You can explore the different columns that we have. You can check for the categories of the admission type that we have. You can check for the categories of medication test results that we have in this data set, and just try to explore it. And that will be all for today's class. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about group by and having clause, how to use them in our query. Okay, sure you paste whatever question you are able to answer. For example, we did the total number of patients and we used the count ID. So after coming up with, let me know if you were able to get the category for admission type. So you can just type that in the comment section that you got the category for admission type, if that was what you did for extra practice. Another person might get the category for medication. Let me know in the comment section which one you actually did as extra practice. I'll see you tomorrow, and bye for now.